They called him Ironside, not because of his armor, not because of his weapons, because in every single battle he ever fought, no blade could cut him deep enough to stop him, no arrow could find a vital spot, no army, no matter how large, could break him. His name was Bjorn, son of Ragnar Lothbrok, the most feared Viking who ever lived, brother of Ivar the Boneless, the most brilliant military mind the Norse world ever produced. And yet, Bjorn outdid them both. While Ivar conquered England, Bjorn sailed to places no Viking had ever seen: Spain, Morocco, Italy, the Mediterranean. 3 years, 62 longships, thousands of miles, and not a single defeat. When he finally returned home, he brought with him more gold, more silk, more treasure than any Viking raid in history. But the most valuable thing he brought back was not gold. It was a story so incredible, so impossibly audacious, that it is still told today, over 1,000 years later. Stay with me, because this story gets better with every minute. Most people know Ragnar Lothbrok. Most people know Ivar the Boneless. But Bjorn Ironside, the eldest son, the strongest son, the most traveled son, is the one history somehow forgot to celebrate, and that ends today. Bjorn was born into impossible expectations. His father had raided Paris. His father had made kings pay silver to leave them in peace. His father had become a living legend before Bjorn could even hold a sword. Imagine growing up with that. Imagine trying to find your own identity, when your father is already the most famous man in the world. Most sons would have lived in that shadow forever. Bjorn did not, because Bjorn understood something his father and his brother never fully grasped. Ragnar conquered through charisma. Ivar conquered through strategy. Bjorn would conquer through something entirely different: distance. He would go so far that his legend would have no competition. No other Viking had been there. No other Viking could compare. The Mediterranean was waiting, and Bjorn Ironside was coming. Before we follow Bjorn south, let's talk about that name. Ironside. Where does it come from? The sagas give us the answer, in one of the most vivid battle descriptions in all of Viking literature. Bjorn is young, perhaps 18 or 19 years old. He faces an enemy force on an open field somewhere in Scandinavia. The enemy outnumbers his warriors 2-1. The smart move: retreat, regroup, fight another day. Bjorn does not retreat. He charges. What follows is described in the sagas as one of the most terrifying individual performances on a Viking battlefield. Bjorn moves through the enemy formation like something that cannot be killed. Swords hit him. He keeps moving. An arrow finds his shoulder. He pulls it out. Keeps moving. A spear grazes his side. He snaps it. Keeps moving. When the battle ends, Bjorn is standing in the middle of the enemy dead. His warriors stare at him, covered in wounds that should have killed him. Still breathing, still standing. One of his men speaks first. He is made of iron, he says, and from that day forward, no one called him anything else. 862 AD. Bjorn stands on the deck of his longship. Before him, the Atlantic Ocean. Behind him, Scandinavia, his home, his father's legend. Beside him, his blood brother Halstein, one of the greatest Viking tacticians who ever lived. Together they have assembled 62 longships, thousands of warriors, enough firepower to conquer a small kingdom. But Bjorn is not interested in small kingdoms. He is interested in the world, the real world, the ancient world, the world of Rome, of Carthage, of the great civilizations that built the Mediterranean into the center of human history. His scouts have told him about it. Merchants have described it: a sea so warm it never freezes, coastlines lined with cities of unimaginable wealth, kingdoms that have never been raided because no enemy has ever been able to reach them. Until now. Bjorn gives the order. 62 longships turn south.
The fleet passes through the Strait of Gibraltar, the gateway between the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. For the warriors on those ships, it must have felt like entering another world. The water warmer, the air different, the coastlines more lush, and the cities unlike anything any of them had ever seen. Bjorn does not waste time. He raids the Spanish coast first, swift, brutal, efficient, then Morocco, the African continent, places so far from Scandinavia that the men on Bjorn's ships can barely comprehend how far they have traveled. Then the Balearic Islands, Sardinia, the coast of Italy, city after city, raid after raid, and everywhere they go, the reaction is the same: terror, disbelief, surrender, because nobody in the Mediterranean had prepared for Vikings. Their walls were built to stop armies that marched on land. Their navies were built to fight ships that needed deep harbors. The Viking longship needed neither. It appeared from nowhere. It hit fast, and by the time the city could organize a defense, Bjorn was already gone. Richer, stronger, more confident, pushing deeper into the ancient world. And then comes the moment that defines Bjorn Ironside forever. His fleet arrives at a large, wealthy Italian city. The walls are thick. The garrison is strong. A direct assault would cost too many men. Bjorn's scouts make their report. The city is called Luna, but Bjorn's men, far from home with no maps of Italy, believe something else entirely. They believe it is Rome. Rome, the eternal city, capital of the greatest empire the world had ever seen. The city of Caesar, of Augustus, of the Colosseum. Even in 862 AD, 800 years after Rome's greatest power, the name still meant something. The most famous city in the world. And Bjorn Ironside decides he is going to take it. But the walls are too strong for a direct assault, so Bjorn thinks. And what he comes up with is one of the most audacious deceptions in military history. He sends a messenger to the city bishop. The message is delivered with great sadness. Their great leader, the fearsome Bjorn Ironside, has fallen gravely ill. On his deathbed, he has seen the light of the Christian God. He wishes to convert before he dies. His only request: a Christian burial inside the city walls. The bishop, moved by this apparent miracle of conversion, opens the gates. A solemn procession enters, Viking warriors carrying a coffin, heads bowed, expressions grave. The gates close behind them. The bishop steps forward to receive the dying warrior, and then the coffin lid flies open. Bjorn Ironside stands up, fully armed, and the warriors around him draw their weapons simultaneously. Luna falls in minutes. It was not Rome, but the trick Bjorn used to take it would have impressed Rome's greatest generals. After 3 years in the Mediterranean, Bjorn turns his ships north. The journey home is not easy. Frankish forces ambush part of his fleet near the Spanish coast. He loses ships. He loses men. But he does not lose heart. He fights through, pushes forward, and when he finally sails into Scandinavian waters, he brings with him the greatest haul of treasure any Viking fleet had ever carried home. Silk from the Islamic Caliphate, gold coins from North Africa, silver from a dozen civilizations, prisoners who had never seen snow. But more than the treasure, he brings back knowledge of the world beyond Scandinavia, of how other civilizations lived, how they fought, how they built. And Bjorn uses that knowledge to do something unexpected. He becomes a king of Sweden, the greatest adventure the Viking world had ever produced, settles down, builds a kingdom, governs wisely, and rules for decades. Bjorn Ironside died as a king, not in battle, not at sea, as a ruler, surrounded by his people, in his own kingdom. For a Viking, that was almost unheard of. Most died with weapons in their hands. Bjorn died with a crown on his head. His descendants ruled Sweden for generations after him. The Munsud dynasty, named after the island where Bjorn is believed to be buried, continued his legacy for over a century. He was not just a warrior. He was the founder of a royal line, a man who turned adventure into dynasty, raid into kingdom, legend into history. Bjorn Ironside, the son who stepped out of his father's shadow by sailing further than his father ever dreamed. The warrior who could not be cut down, who eventually chose to put down his sword. The raider who saw more of the world than any man of his age, and used that vision to build something that lasted. History gives us warriors by the thousands, kings by the hundreds, but men like Bjorn, men who are both, come along once in a generation. He was Ragnar's son. He was Ivar's brother. But most importantly, he was Bjorn Ironside, and that name needs no other introduction. Next episode, we leave the Sons of Ragnar behind, and we go somewhere no NorsePath episode has gone before. above the world of men, into the realm of the Norse gods themselves. Odin, the All-Father, the Wanderer, the god who sacrificed his own eye just to see more of the world. Subscribe to NorsePath, because next episode is going to be unlike anything you have seen before.